Hi, my name is Amy, and I have something to tell you. My brother is older than my mother. You might think it's impossible, but my family isn't exactly typical. Let me explain to you how this happened. My mom met my dad when she was really young, fresh out of high school. She had just turned 18 and was a freshman at college and bored with dating immature boys. He was a professor at the university she had enrolled in, and they hit it off right away. At first, he wasn't sure if he should ask her out, given their age difference. But he couldn't deny his feelings for long. He says Mom was the most beautiful woman he ever saw in his life, and the sweetest, too. You see, by then, my dad was already divorced. He was 45 years old and had a kid of his own. They had been dating less than a month into the semester. They both claim it was love at first sight, which I think is so sweet. Even though things were going really well between them, they had to keep it a secret for a while. My mom was an adult, so it was all right for them to become a couple, but there was a big problem they had to deal with. Teachers dating their students was frowned upon, and my dad could lose his job if any of the faculty members discovered the truth. So during the following few months, they dated in secret, seeing each other off campus and growing closer and closer to one another. They got along really well and had so much in common. Still, they knew some people in their lives wouldn't approve of their relationship because of their age difference. So at first, not only was my mom keeping it a secret from her fellow students, but from my grandparents as well. My mom knew about Dad's ex-wife and the son he had with her, but there was a detail he was keeping from her, worried she might be freaked out by it. Eventually, though, he decided he needed to come out clean to her and let her know the truth. His son was no child. He was, in fact, older than my mother by 2 whole years. Of course, that made things extra awkward for everyone involved. My mom wondered if they could make it work at all, no matter how much they liked each other. They were already worried about the authorities at their college firing Dad, which was bad enough. But they also had to think about how to tell my grandparents about their relationship, since Dad was almost 3 times Mom's age. They started out small. Mom told a few of her closest friends about it. They laughed and told her she had daddy issues and that she'd soon grow bored of the novelty. Mom was really frustrated, but she didn't give up so easily. She had really fallen in love with my dad, and she wanted to give their relationship a real try. So next, she told her parents she was going to be bringing a boyfriend over to meet them, but that they should keep an open mind when he arrived. Mom and Dad arrived at my grandparents' home, and you can imagine how awkward that dinner was. Her boyfriend was only a few years younger than her own dad. My grandfather was livid with anger. His little girl was merely 18 years old, barely legal. Of course, there was little he could do, since my mother was already an adult. But he was sure that my father was taking advantage of my mom's youth. They had a big argument that night, and Mom left with Dad, while Grandma yelled at them to come back. It was awful. Mom cried all night long, and she was so worried they'd never have her parents' approval. My granddad didn't speak to my mom for over a week. That's how mad he was. It was absolutely insane, but my dad stuck by her side. In the end, though, my grandparents accepted their relationship to keep their only daughter from distancing herself from them. Nowadays, they all get along pretty well, but back then, it was a really hard pill for them to swallow. Finally, it was time to meet the son. My mom was so anxious. She was certain they'd never be able to get along. My half-brother Lucas had been warned about the age of the girl his father was dating, so at least he wasn't surprised when he arrived for dinner. He's told me, though, how awkward the meal was. The waiter actually thought he was the one dating my mom, and that my dad was her dad. To be able to date my dad in public, Mom eventually decided to transfer to another great college. They were really happy together. So about 6 months into their relationship, they decided to get married. The wedding ceremony was small and intimate, since they knew it was not a good idea to have a big party. Many of their friends had stopped talking to them altogether, so they just wanted those closest to them to be there. Some family members hesitated, But in the end, all the people they invited showed up and supported the new couple. That was when things got really awkward, though, as my mom and dad immediately began speaking about having a kid. Yes, that's me. I would be born less than a year after, but it wasn't quite so simple. Because of their age difference, they knew people would warn them not to try and be parents. After all, he'd be old enough to be my grandfather when I became a teenager. My grandparents tried to dissuade them, but they were really determined to make a family of their own. My grandma was so worried. She sent Mom emails filled with research she had done online about how the situation could affect their baby growing up, or how high the chances of becoming a single mother were. She was clearly worried about what would happen if my dad died before I became an adult. Who would help my mom raise me then? Was she ready to take care of a little girl all on her own? And what about if my dad didn't die, but he suffered some illness related to his age? After all, he'd be 63 when I turned 18. What if something happened to him before that? What if she not only had to take care of me, but also of my dad at the same time? In the end, though, my grandmother relented and supported my parents' decision. They seemed really determined to have a child, and my mom was so eager to be a mother. So Grandma instead began knitting crochet booties. The person who took it the hardest was Lucas. He wasn't ready for such news, and he was adamantly opposed to it. He didn't want to have a sister or brother so young that he could actually be mistaken for their father. Dad and my brother got in a really heated argument. They were sitting at my parents' living room, just hanging out, when Dad told him they had something they wanted to say to him. Lucas told me this story so many times, and he always tells me how he was expecting any news but the ones he received. He got so mad and started yelling at my dad, calling him irresponsible and impulsive. He screamed about how humiliating it was for him to have a father who was married to a girl young enough to be his sister instead of his stepmom. All kinds of things he had been keeping buried inside came to the surface. You can imagine how well that went. My dad and my half-brother didn't speak to each other for months. My mom kept trying to get her husband to forgive his son, since she didn't want them to be mad at each other when I was born. Mom told him she wanted both his son and daughter to be in each other's lives. Even if Lucas wasn't her son, she was still fond of him, and she knew the importance of being there for one another. No matter what, they were families and needed to stick together. So, a month before Mom's due date, Dad finally got Lucas to talk to him again. They had a long heart-to-heart conversation, though my brother wasn't still too happy about it. He promised my dad he needed time to process everything that was going on. Lucas didn't call Dad again until a few weeks after I was born. He called to ask if he could come to meet the baby, and of course, my parents said yes. Lucas arrived with a massive teddy bear I still have in my room, even if now it's a bit worn out. I love hearing this part of the story from Mom, Dad, and even Lucas. They all agree that the moment my brother picked me up, it was obvious that we had this great bond, even if I was just a little baby. And it's true, my older brother is my best friend. He's always there when I need him, and he was my confidant and prank buddy when I was growing up. Now that I'm 15, he's the person I can tell all my secrets to, and who always defends me when I have an argument with my mom or my dad. He's married to an awesome woman called Kate, who I love to bits. She is so much fun, and she never judged how strange our family is. Kate's currently pregnant with my little niece, Samantha. I can't wait to meet that little bundle of joy and be the best auntie in the entire world. So that's my family's crazy story. Yes, my stepbrother is older than my mom by 2 full years. And I know that sounds insane to most people. To me, though, it's the most normal thing in the world. I'm so happy this is the case, since, thanks to that, I got the coolest brother any little sister could wish for. My mom and dad have a beautiful relationship, even though they have such a big age difference. They are loving and support each other no matter what, and they've done their best to raise me in a happy home.